Hi, I'm Georgia Redmayne, and you're listening to How's That, the cricket podcast.
How's that? You messed about, I caught you out. How's that?
With myself, Ollie.
And me, Lily. So we are back. There's been quite a bit of cricket, but due to the fact that you were absent last week, that means we do have to skip over quite a bit and just jump straight into the current cricket, really. But yeah, you were in Brisbane last week. How was your holiday? How was your getaway?
It was decent. It did rain a lot. The day it got there, it started like a deluge of rain, and the day we left, it was back to sun again. So it was literally like we brought it with us from Melbourne. But yeah, it was nice. Obviously, you had something to celebrate as well since we last recorded the podcast. Obviously, you had a birthday to celebrate, which wasn't mentioned because it hadn't happened last time we recorded. So happy 18th birthday for what seems like a year ago.
Thank you. It was a good day. It was other than the fact of being legal, I don't feel much different within myself. So it was a bit weird turning into an adult when I don't really feel like I've turned into an adult. But
Your words.
It was it was an interesting one. But no, I had a good day, and we're back at it, into the daily routine, I guess, now for us both.
Worth mentioning, of course, that while we're on the intro a bit, we do have a wonderful guest joining us too in Georgia Redmayne. Been around many WBBL clubs, so you've probably been a fan of one of them if you're listening in. So there's probably someone for everyone, really. Georgia Redmayne, an absolutely wonderful interviewee. We've just come off the interview as we're recording this, so make sure you stick about. Had a lot to say. Absolutely wonderful human being. So can't speak of her highly enough.
Yeah, she was really brilliant, but that we'll leave you hanging just for a little bit longer because we have got a little bit of cricket chat to do beforehand. So we were just going to go over the England versus South Africa women's ODI and the India versus England's men's ODI. But we'll start off with the England versus South Africa one that happened on the 11th of July first. This was quite a comfortable win by England, wasn't it? It was winning by 5 wickets with a century by Emma Lamb, which was just incredible to watch. Yeah, it was really good, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was nice. And it's always nice to see a Lancastrian, from my point of view, doing well in world cricket. We've seen it in the men's game with Jimmy Anderson. We see it in the women's game with Kate Cross. People playing for Lancashire and then doing so well for England. And now Emma Lamb can add her name to what is quite an illustrious list, if we're being honest, and I will brag about it because I'm proud of the county and the players that we've produced from it. But Emma Lamb, what an innings she played. She was absolutely remarkable, and that's almost not giving her the praise that she deserved, because the innings that she played took the game away and made sure that England did it really in a canter. And it was the interesting tweet from Polly that got me saying, just did Emma Lamb's 100 and was so distracted, I got bowled for a second ball dark or something along those lines, that I just thought just captured it brilliantly. The way that even someone like Polly, the friend of the podcast, is stumped by such a wonderful innings. So 102 off 97 balls, over a runnable ton, which is remarkable in any form, no matter if it be Test cricket, as we've seen in the England men's recently somehow, T20 or ODI. And, hats off to Emma Lamb. She was, well supported, namely by Nat Siver with a 50, and Sophia Donkley had a bit of a hit with 22, and Danny White with a nice little cameo. But, the story is Emma Lamb, and absolutely, we can embellish that innings all you want because it was a wonderful one.
Yeah, it was. And like you said, it really did secure that win for England there. But it was tricky on the South African side because they just couldn't get going. It was Laura Wolvaert of 43, just shy of a half century there. But Chloe Tryon came in a little bit later in the innings in the middle order, scoring 88. But that still couldn't drag South Africa even to bat out their full 50 overs. They still didn't manage to make the full 50, being all bowled out for 218. So, as well as being a brilliant performance by Emma Lamb, it was also a really brilliant performance by the bowlers to limit South Africa to 218. So yeah, that was good to see from an England perspective, and I'll be excited to see what happens with it going into the second ODI. But It was good to see Danny Wyatt back in the team after missing out in the test. And it was also a little bit disappointing to not see Lauren Bell or Izzy Wong, but like, it was a little bit expected, to be honest, after, having a brilliant test. It would have been nice to see them, but I do understand why they didn't play.
Yeah, it's as we're saying, there's a change of the guard, happening and about to happen in pace bowling for England women's cricket. Obviously, Kate Cross, podcast guest all those many moons ago, wonderful cricketer, so much admiration from all of us. But at the end of the day, she can't go on forever. We've seen Catherine Brunt recently as well. But you see what I mean? That these players can't go on forever.
Mm-hmm.
And Catherine Brunt eventually will retire from every format. Kate Cross will retire from every format. And they're just two spots tailor-made for Bell and Izzy Wong. I certainly reckon, unless there's someone else waiting in the wings that could take the spot. But I think at the front of the pack at the moment is Izzy Wong and Lauren Bell.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you're right there. It'd be just nice to see their opportunity arise eventually. But yeah, good win by England. And like I said, I'll be tuning into the next game. Now, Ollie, the ODI versus England and India happened last night within the men, and it's safe to say England fans wouldn't be too happy.
Yeah, look, I wasn't watching at this point, but I was following along. And I was just looking, going, because I'm in a few cricket chats, and I was just looking, going, what in the world's happened? I was checking my notifications that were popping up on my phone. 8 for 2. Everyone was getting skittled left, right, and centre. I'm like, what is going on? It very briefly reminded me of a game, I think it was back in 2018 when we played Australia over here. I think we were 9 for 5, I think it was. 9 runs for 5 wickets. And I was just thinking, it sort of reminded me of that a little bit, which is not a nice memory to have. But no, it was awful from England. And if we're being truthfully honest, 25 overs we batted out, 110, done by 10 wickets. Like, that's just not something you expect. Like, if you run down the card, Roy, duck, Root coming in at 3, duck, Stokes, duck, Livingston, duck. The highest scoring player that you had outside of Josh Butler was David Willey with 21. That just shows, doesn't it? And look, I haven't had a chance today to brush over the highlights. Is it something that I want to do? Not really. I mean, to be fair, watching Rohit Sharma batsman, never a bad thing. But when it's tearing apart the England bowling attack, you're just thinking, do you have to? But no, it's a horrible game for England and a horrible way to start the ODI series. And the positive thing with that is you can only go up from here. That's the positive. So hopefully maybe we can make it to 30 overs next time we bat first. No, hopefully we can actually make a game of it. But fair play to India. They went to the Oval and got the job done really, really easily, and fair play to them.
Yeah. It was a rather quick game there, wasn't it? But yeah, fingers crossed that obviously India did take the T20 series. So hopefully England can fight back from this a bit and win the next two. Would be nice to see.
I think this is the humbling that English men's cricket needed, though, because myself included, we were, even if we were, taking the mickey a little bit, like we were saying, oh, England cricket is invincible now. England men's cricket is invincible with Bazball and, Ben Stokes, when we were absolutely tearing New Zealand apart with the red ball, and India and chasing down 370 odd or whatever it was. This is probably the peg back down to earth that English men's cricket needed, just getting absolutely battered with the white ball, because it shows that we need to do something else now. Obviously, with Owen Morgan retiring, he was the one that did that sparked us into action. And now with him gone from international cricket, we need someone else to step up, and it'll be interesting to see who that is.
Yeah, 100%. But yeah, I guess we'll have to wait and see with that one, won't we?
We will. It's a long-term thing.
Yeah. Now moving on quickly, we will just briefly touch over the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy results that have happened. There have been 4 more games since I last went over them, but to no surprise, Southern Vipers still topping the table. Look, if I'm completely honest, I just don't think that they're gonna be beaten. Obviously, coming off a win of the Rachel Hayhoe Flint Trophy last year, they're trying to defend it, and just coming off a Charlotte Edwards Cup win as well. They're looking pretty undefeatable. And, you know, obviously not a Southern Vipers fan myself, but I think they are going to probably take this one out again. But other than that, we've had the Central Sparks versus Western Storm, which Central Sparks won 206 to Storm 9 for 184. And then Northern Diamonds won against the Sunrisers with 194 all out. Sunrisers 188. Then Thunder lost to Lightning, which was Lightning won 241, which is a pretty good score there. And Thunder 9 for 238. And then again, the Southern Vipers have very comfortably beaten the Southeast Stars. Vipers 9 for 306 and Southern Vipers all out for 173. That is a very solid win there by the Vipers. And like I said, I don't think they're going to be defeated anytime soon. But that's the brief matches that have happened. The table is looking like
Vipers top, of course.
Yes, Vipers top. Then it is Northern Diamonds, also on a played 2-1-2. So, you know, could go either way there, but Vipers do have one more point. Then Western Storm, Southeast Stars, Central Sparks, Lightning, Thunder, and Sunrisers. So both Thunder and Sunrisers played 2, lost 2. So hopefully they can fight back there and win a few games there. I know you're probably a bit disappointed with Thunder's performance.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. Like, please, can we at least can we get something on the board, please? Only 2 games in, so a long way to go, but I'm sure we'll work it out. Good players in the team. Obviously, we've seen with Emma Lamb being away, that's a massive loss. So hopefully, when we get a full strength team back, we can get some wins on the board.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that's the Rachel Hayhoe Flint trophy currently. So moving on, I will very briefly just go over the World Cup qualifiers. Now, there's 2 groups. There's Group A and Group B. Now, the 2 winning teams, there's 2 spots up for grabs. Whoever wins those 2 spots will go into the 2022 World Cup in Australia here. So Group A is Zimbabwe, USA, Jersey, and Singapore. And Group B is the Netherlands, Uganda, Hong Kong, and Papua New Guinea. So Zimbabwe and USA are sitting on 2 points, and the Netherlands and Uganda are also sitting on 2 points. So I'd really like, personally, I'd like to see the USA go through, but I'd probably also like to see the Netherlands. I think they do have a couple of Aussies who are playing over in that team. But what about you? Who would you like to see in those 2 World Cup spots?
Yeah, USA probably, especially 1 for Marty, Marty Kane, and 2 for them to obviously prepare for their World Cup that they're going to host. And probably Uganda. Obviously, when I was growing up, we obviously had Netherlands playing ODIs with, you know, the Ryan Ten-Descartes of the world. He was the one that stood out to me growing up, and I just have a core memory of him playing. I don't know why. But someone different would be nice to see in a World Cup. I like, you know, to see new teams come in and new players on show. So it'd be nice to see one of the new teams, you know, make it through, and we're not having the same teams recycled over and over again. Nothing against the Netherlands, but I would like to see someone else there.
Yeah, no, definitely, I can agree. Hopefully, well, obviously with Zimbabwe and Uganda both sitting on 2 points, they can take a win there. That'd be really good. But yeah, those 2 spots are up for grabs currently, and we'll keep everybody updated with how they go and who takes those 2 spots. But moving on, Ollie, you wanted to quickly touch over the county championships happening over in England. So do you want to take that away?
Yeah, just briefly, because these games are still ongoing, and by the time that obviously we speak about them, the scores are probably going to change. But just worth mentioning, just a brief rundown of how the games are currently going, and how the league's looking, both Division 1 and Division 2. Essex and Gloucestershire. Essex in a really good position, bowled out for 310. They bowled Gloucestershire out for 136, and they've got Gloucestershire 140 for 6. So they've just got to make sure that they can maybe get an innings win there, can Essex, but Gloucestershire want to make sure that Essex bat again. My Lancs got absolutely belted in the first innings, 446 all out down there in Southport and Birkdale Cricket Club. Not a bad reply, though, to start with. Currently 146 for none. Luke Wells, how about this? 99 not out overnight. That's he's got 1 run to get to make a century. So that's going to be interesting to see. I'll be watching that with bated breath come 8 o'clock local time in Melbourne. Surrey are currently 191 for 1 in reply to Yorkshire's 521 all out. Decent game brewing in Canterbury with Northamptonshire, 303 all out. Kent, 287 for 5. And also in Division 1, you've got Warwickshire currently 11 without loss, 217 all out in their first innings after Hampshire declared 370 for 9. Division 2, Sussex with a really impressive 588, Leicestershire in reply 159 for 1. So really good first innings total there. 588, again, it's not something you see all too often. 588, I should say. Tom Alsop, 150 all out, so really good knock from him. The rest of the games in Division 2, as we look, we'll just quickly go through these. Middlesex, currently 180 for 6. They were bowled all out, 188 in their first innings. Worcestershire bowled out for 191. Durham bowled out for 296 in their game against Derbyshire. But Derbyshire currently 19 for 2 after their first innings went for 283. So Derbyshire leading that one by 6 runs with 8 wickets remaining. And the final game, Glamorgan, 318 first innings. Nottinghamshire, 285. Glamorgan in their second innings, 53 without loss in terms of the tables. For those, it's ever changing, really, for being brutally honest. It's going to be an interesting one to look at right throughout the tournament and the summer as it progresses. But there's a lot of high quality teams playing in both divisions. So if we bring up those tables, Division 1, Surrey currently leading that from Hampshire, Lancashire and Essex, rounding out that top 4. And in Division 2, it's Nottinghamshire, Middlesex, Glamorgan, and then Derbyshire, with Leicestershire, a county that always used to beat Lancashire in T20s when I was growing up, propping up the table in 8th. So that is the English domestic roundup.
Well, that was very good. Thank you. And I'm sure you can keep us up to date within the next coming episodes. But no, very good to hear. But yeah, I think without further ado, we should just jump straight into our interview. So, like we said at the beginning, we spoke to Georgia Redmayne, or Dr. Georgia Redmayne, should we say. And I really, really enjoyed it. Like, really enjoyed it. She was so brilliant and such a laugh as well, wasn't she?
She was, honestly, a cricketer that you said off air, almost idolised in a sense, being a wicketkeeper yourself. She was just absolutely down to earth, as you would expect. Well, not as you would expect, perhaps, but as you would want anyone to be, any human to be, absolutely down to earth. Wonderful person, an absolute joy to chat to, and the pleasure was ours, certainly.
Yeah, so enjoy our interview with Georgia Redmayne.
Oh my, runs in the first innings to Redmayne, 71 of them, but that is probably the highlight of her night. Incredible work there from Georgia Redmayne.
Welcome and thank you very much for joining us today. Could you just start off telling us where you're based at the moment, where you're kind of at with your cricket?
Yeah, so living in Brisbane now, which is really nice. This is, I think, my 4th season for the Queensland Fire. So, yeah, been really exciting couple of years and had a little bit of success too. And renewed my Heat contract again. So I think I'll be coming up to my 3rd season with Brisbane Heat and renewed for another year, I think, last week. So, super exciting. I think I've probably traveled around to a few different states and played in a few different teams, but just feel really kind of settled at the moment and really enjoying things up here in Brisbane. I think we've got fantastic facilities all year round, so we're really spoiled out of probably a lot of teams, and just love the group of girls, and our coaching staff are amazing. So really enjoying it, and hopefully a good season for Queensland and Brisbane coming up, hopefully.
Yeah, and so obviously it's starting pre-season now, I believe. So you're all getting going again. Have you been up to much in your off season, or has it just been a very distant from cricket season, I guess?
Yeah, well, because I was in New Zealand for the World Cup as one of the travelling reserves, so I kind of felt like I had a lot of time at the back end of last season, probably watching a lot of cricket and not playing too much cricket. So, but in saying that, traveling around is, quite tiring. You can't really complain, to be honest. But after you spend a lot of time on the road, it is nice to have a bit of downtime. But I had a couple of weeks in Dubai. Actually, I played in the Fairbreak Global competition there. Played for the Warriors team there, and I thought that was just a really cool experience. It was a really short competition, but I just really enjoyed, you meet people from all over the world, and, people with so much fewer resources, obviously, than what we have, here in Australia. So I think it was really kind of grounding, just the passion these people have for the game and kind of what they come from to be where they are. So I found that, experience really cool. also traveling around to Dubai for the first time, which is pretty cool as a tourist as well. Despite a little bit of COVID in there, but yeah, got back, had a little bit of downtime, and then did a little bit of hospital work in June, a couple of weeks in June, back home near at Lismore Hospital. So yeah, a bit of a different environment to throw into the off season, and then yeah, I think we've timed probably our pre-season pretty well. We're probably maybe a little bit later than some of the teams, but I think it was a nice chance to get a bit of a break away from cricket. Especially I think the last 12 months I've had a lot of time on the road, so felt pretty refreshed going into our pre-season, which started about 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I was just going to go back to what you said earlier about the fair break tournament, because that was very new for a lot of people. I feel like it's been in the making for quite a long time, but to have the first kind of invitational tournament was pretty amazing to see. And I guess like all the, those the Australians like you and Elise Villani and Nick Carey, but then to also have the English players like Heather Knight and Laura Wolfart, and then like you said, the associate players. What was it like to kind of bring all these different elements of cricket levels, I guess, into the one tournament? And it must have been a strange but cool experience.
Yeah, like it was really strange, but like as I said, it's really cool. Like you're playing with people from like Argentina. I didn't even know they played cricket over there. Like there's a lot of Hong Kong girls. We had a girl from like Namibia and like Botswana and like a lot of these associate countries, and they just love their cricket, and I think that was really refreshing. I feel like when you kind of now that we're in a really professional setup, it's often you take a lot of things as a given. So I thought that was really refreshing, seeing a lot of perspective from a lot of the girls who've faced so many barriers to playing cricket. But yeah, it was kind of weird. I actually at the hotel, because all the teams are obviously staying at the hotel together in Dubai, it kind of almost had a bit of a flashback to the WBBL hub when you just see everyone at breakfast and at the pool, and like it's almost like, oh, hello. And like as you said, like the English girls, South African girls, I thought that was really cool. Like you kind of see a lot of people, and it was probably around the time when a lot of Big Bash contracts were being thrown around, so a few of the Aussie girls were trying to do a bit of recruiting. But yeah, it was a really cool experience, and it was kind of weird the fact that because there's no real domestic players, is there? Because there's no real like country hosting the tournament, so you're kind of classified as an associate member nation or a full member nation, and which certainly made it interesting. I think like each team could play 6 full member nations players in their starting 11. So it's really cool. Like obviously a lot of the associate girls got really good chance to kind of play in like a professional competition, which was really cool. And you could just see the standard improve from a lot of those girls as the competition went on, which I thought was really nice. And yeah, like I think it's really important to try to raise the standard of cricket in countries all around the world, because that's going to only make the game be better off. And you don't always want to just be playing the same 3 teams over and over. You want a lot of teams kind of challenging for titles and things like that. So I think it's great for the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it gives it that kind of opportunity where maybe in the future, like you said, it could be like an Australian versus Hong Kong kind of series, like that kind of thing, like that kind of experience it gives it. But was there any sort of like language barriers between any players or anything? Because I feel like, a lot of them from post-match interviews didn't speak very good English. So was that tricky in any way?
Yeah, I think that was one of my biggest concerns going in. I'm like, it must be a tough ask for like the coaches and the captains. Like, there's going to be so many language barriers. I think in our team we were pretty okay. Like, a lot of people had really great English, even as like a second language for a lot of them. Our girl who was from Argentina, Mariana, she I was like, oh, your English is really good. Like how do you, like, I almost would know that it's not your first language. And she's like, oh yeah, I just learned English by watching American movies. I felt like I had to learn it to play cricket. And I'm like, that's really impressive. Not something that we ever have to deal with. But yeah, like in our Warriors team, I think most people it was surprisingly pretty good. There was our one player from Sri Lanka. Udi Prabodani, she struggled a little bit. I think Julia Price, our coach, had to get a bit of Google Translate going sometimes after the meetings, but we'd have a big group meeting. We kind of look at over Udi and she just kind of nod and smile, and we're like, okay, she probably didn't get any of that. But yeah, I think like someone would kind of go to her after and try to clarify the main points. So I think for the most part our team was all right, but I have heard a few stories in some of the other teams. It's been a little bit hard with the communication, but you know, I think the more that people get to play with each other and you know, learn a little bit more, I think, you know, it'll only improve from there with English and just communication in general, I think.
Yeah. I thought that would have been a challenge.
You were mentioning before about, you know, doing a bit of recruiting. Were there any inclinations to become a bit, you know, agent Georgia Redmayne and bring any players over to the Heat? And if so, which players did you try and top up, if you like?
Oh, look, I can't give away too many details, I'm afraid. No, like it was just funny, like because I think so. Grace Harris is the other kind of Brisbane girl who was over there, and we're kind of talking about different players and stuff, and yeah, because like you kind of, you know, when people are all living in the Fairbreak hub, I could almost call it, it was, you know, there's a lot of talk about people going to WBBL and you hear about who's been talking to what club. So, but yeah, no, there's a lot of kind of like, oh, what about them? Why don't we look at them? But no, we obviously don't do the deals. I think people on higher pay grade than us and more important people do the deals than us. But yeah, certainly kind of interesting. I think a lot of people were getting signed around that time. So there's certainly, you know, a little bit of signing gossip to take back, I suppose. But I probably can't share it.
Yeah, probably not. I just hope that you're not trying to sneak back Laura Wolfart, because I know she made the move from the Heat to the Strikers. So I'm hoping that that's not a move back there.
She's obviously in great form, so I'm sure whatever team she plays for, that'll be a great benefit for them. Yeah, I feel like those South African girls, they kind of seem to travel all year round. They play in all the tournaments. So yeah, I think they're off in England at the moment in a series against England. So yeah, she certainly played very well at Fairbreak and in Big Bash has gone past too. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure what the Adelaide signings are. So but I assume they'd probably want to retain her.
Yeah, well, I'd say so. I mean, it's very like at the moment, this is one of the most exciting periods of Big Bash. I'm very excited to see who gets signed.
It's funny because they really hype up the signings every week, but everyone would have signed months ago. Like they just like to drag it out for a little bit of, you know, social media, just keep the audience hanging, you know. So yeah, no, it is exciting as well because obviously we don't really know who signed where. We kind of know who signed with us, but not really anything else. So yeah, it is an exciting time when you kind of get all of those coming through, especially with the international players. Because I think, you know, one of the best things about WBBL is that we've kind of been able to consistently bring the best players over. So yeah, we've been really lucky and it's made the competition great and such a success.
Yeah, it's really exciting. And I mean, talking about, you mentioned there about bringing over the best internationals. Now, I guess in comparison to the men's Big Bash, the big talk at the moment has been the fact that the women's Big Bash is probably one of the best tournaments going because we get to have every single national player. So, you know, you've got like everyone, Meg Lanning plays in the Big Bash. But then in the men's, you know, you don't have the top level players. So what does it mean to you to be a part of a tournament that's changing the female cricket world, I guess, because a lot of tournaments look up to the Big Bash and the women's Big Bash. So what does that mean to you to be a part of such a good tournament?
I consider myself so lucky. Obviously, I think when they brought it in, it certainly changed the female game in Australia forever, really. Like I remember I didn't play in the first Big Bash, but like I was on a state contract at that time and it was maybe like $2,000 or $3,000 or something like that. And now like state contracts are professional, which is like fantastic. So yeah, like it's amazing to think in 7 or 8 years how much things have changed. And you know how much more engagement there is in the women's game and in Australia, but then also, you know, like the success has kind of fed into England, like setting up the 100. I thought was really cool tournament last year, being a part of that. And, you know, talk of the IPL, hopefully next year, fingers crossed, wait and find out. The CPL are doing a bit of a smaller tournament this year too. So like there's so many tournaments kind of popping up, which, you know, it's kind of, you could probably almost trace it all back to the start of the WBBL and how successful that was. So yeah, I'm very, very lucky to be able to play in it. And yeah, I've been pretty lucky to have played for a few teams in the Big Bash, so I've kind of had a lot of traveling around. But yeah, it's a great tournament, and it's one of the highlights of everyone's seasons. It is a bit of a roller coaster on the road sometimes, but I think with the schedule released this year, everyone's a bit excited to have a few more home games. I think we hadn't played in Brisbane for 2 years, and I think the Melbourne girls hadn't played in Victoria for 2 years. So I think that'll be really nice, kind of having a more business as usual WBBL rather than a kind of COVID hub or we only play at 3 different venues type WBBL. So I think that'll be really good for fans and players.
Yeah, 100%.
You mentioned obviously the WBBL rightly being sort of a pioneering tournament across world cricket. Do you see yourself as a pioneering player across Australian cricket or as sort of a role model, or do you not view yourself? Because certainly having played for so many clubs, you've inspired a lot of people, and well, that's the way I see it anyway. But do you see yourself in the same light?
Oh, look, not really, but it's nice when you hear people say that. It probably does kind of help me maybe think it. But yeah, I think to be honest, before the WBBL happened, I didn't even consider that I'd still be playing cricket now. I thought I'd be kind of working a real job. But it's but I think the way that it's changed, my life and so many other people's lives, that we can play cricket as a career. How good is that as a job? You get to play a sport you love with friends and get paid to do it. So that's pretty amazing lifestyle, and you get to travel around and see Australia. I just kind of consider myself so grateful to be a part of it, really. I haven't really thought about being a role model, so to speak. Obviously it kind of comes with the job a little bit, but yeah, I guess there's always probably the people who are maybe come before me that I probably look up to probably a little bit more. So probably don't really think of myself in that light too much, but yeah, it's obviously really nice to hear it from other people, I suppose, that you are somewhat a role model in certain areas. So yeah, that's really nice.
And we've mentioned how you've represented a lot of teams and played with a lot of teammates as a result of that, due to representing the organisations that you have in England or in Australia or with Fairbreak. Is there any teammates that stick out, either being outstanding cricketers on field or people that have helped you through you grow as a cricketer and as a person?
Oh, that is such a hard question. Obviously there's so many, I don't want to narrow it down.
Sorry to put you on the spot.
Oh yeah, I know you have really put me on the spot here. I remember my first taste of WBBL. I was in Hobart, moved to Tassie for that year, kind of still studying at uni. And I remember, first taste of WBBL, it was just seemed so strange that we had Heather Knight, who was the England captain, was there, and Amy Satterthwaite, who's absolute New Zealand previous captain, superstar, was there, and Hayley Matthews, who just won a World Cup for the West Indies, was there. You kind of get a bit overwhelmed at the start, and but you look up to kind of those international players so much, and that's probably something that maybe stuck with me, kind of initially getting to play with these some of the best players in the world, and kind of since then being able to play with the likes of people like Nat Siver, a year at Perth when I was there, and even now in Brisbane, Amelia Kerr, she's been fantastic. And I've always, even though she's younger than me, but I've always kind of watched her, I guess, career evolve, and always rated her leg spinners and thought it would be so amazing to get to keep to her one day. And so I'm really lucky to be at Brisbane and get to be behind the stumps to her. I think is really exciting. And I think as well, having had experience in the Aussie squad too, getting to play with some of those superstars is pretty cool. It's something that you kind of go from watching a lot of cricket to playing with these people. I think it's one of the great things about WBBL, and it's then you can go watch them all play in international cricket and World Cups and be like, oh, I know all these people. Playing with Mignon Dupree at Fairbreak, I think she's someone I've always looked up to and wanted to play with. So that was a really cool experience for 2 weeks, getting to know her and obviously getting to play with her too. So there's been a lot of people you kind of always watch on TV, but then when you actually get to meet them and play with them, it's just a really fantastic experience, and you can learn so much, which I've really enjoyed.
Yeah,
So I've
and
probably
obviously-
just named a lot of names there, but
yeah,
basically like all these international players, and then obviously the Australian players too that I've been able to kind of mix with a little bit more lately as well, which has been nice.
Yeah. Speaking of the Australian players, obviously you mentioned before how you were named as a reserve at the last Women's World Cup. You mentioned that you spent a bit of time around the squad. What did you take from that, and how rewarding of an experience was it?
Yeah, like I think, yes, I got my call up to the first Aussie squad for the India series last year, and that was just really excited. Like obviously it's been a dream of mine to try to represent Australia, and I probably wouldn't think that I would have ever made it, especially a few years back, but I think since moving to Brisbane it's been really great change for my game, and I feel like I've improved so much in just the last 2 seasons. So kind of given me that spark back to try to push myself and try to not sell myself short in terms of keep striving for that highest honor. So it's really nice joining such a successful squad. I think when I was before they went to New Zealand, I think the Aussie team had lost only like 2 ODIs in something like 5 years or something like that. So certainly a very successful team, and you do pick up a lot just kind of being around and the training and the way they go about it, and discussing how they approach games and certain phases of gameplay as well. So you got the experience of people like Meg Lanning and Elisa Healy, kind of sitting in on those batting meetings with them. You kind of do learn a lot about, I guess, the way that their mind works in certain situations. So I think that's kind of really good information for me that I can kind of take back and kind of come back with a bit more experience. Obviously it's kind of hard when you go away for a long period of time and you're not really playing too much, but you kind of have to take what you can from those experiences and learnings more off the field than even if you're not really getting it on the field. So hoping for kind of another big season, and hopefully I'm around that environment a little bit more would be nice.
Yeah, and well, I mean, it was the best team to be around, because obviously like a winning team, you can't actually spend time with a better team, because being the winning team, you can't get better than that. So yeah, that must have been amazing. But right at the start, I guess there was a bit of news that was a bit worrying, and it ended up not being as worrying, but obviously the COVID hitting the group a bit. I know Ash Gardner was out like right at the start because of COVID. What kind of worry did that put in the team? Because obviously from a viewer's perspective, it was like, oh no, is the whole Australian team going to get wiped out because of COVID? So what was the kind of the process for you?
Oh, look, I don't really think there was too much panic, to be honest. Like, I think Ash probably got it on from maybe like the second last test we were going to do in New Zealand, like, because we've kind of, I think they changed maybe some of the government regulations over there. So we were doing daily rat tests, and then they were saying, oh, from this date, we won't have to do any more. Like, it's only test if you have symptoms. So everyone's like, oh, okay. Like, so like Heather and I went over as COVID subs, and it was like, oh, but we won't be testing for COVID. So, we might be a little bit redundant. So yeah, like I think everyone obviously tested straight after Ash was positive, and we're all negative, and then we had another test the next day, we're all negative. And no, I think Ash didn't really have too many symptoms, if I remember right. So it was kind of a bit of a strange one, really, that she caught it. But we were doing all the protocols anyway. Like, we'd only ever be allowed to go out and eat or whatever in groups of 3, and it's outdoors and that type of thing. So the risk of her kind of giving it to someone else is pretty low, because we were obviously adhering to a lot of the COVID protocols at the time in our little bubble. So we were pretty fortunate that there was no other cases. But yeah, I think after the initial maybe rat after Ash was positive, I think maybe a couple of people who maybe spent maybe a little bit more time with her, they were negative, was probably quite reassuring. So and there wasn't, we felt pretty safe over there, to be honest. I guess that was kind of a one more minor incident, but like you didn't really feel too much at risk of COVID. Like, we were doing all the proper kind of protocols, eating outside, takeaways a lot of the time, and so we weren't really going to be exposed too much. It would have been like a kind of a freak type exposure thing, which you can't help anyway, which is probably what happened to Ash. So there wasn't too much panic stations, to be honest. At least where I was anyway. Maybe the powers that be had a little bit of moment of panic, but no, I was pretty calm.
Yeah, no, that's good, because it's, yeah, like I said, it was a bit, when we found out that obviously no one else but her had it, it was obviously a big relief. But to hear that someone in the Australia camp got it, it was like, oh no. Like, just
actually,
imagine.
funny story there. I remember, like, because when the news went out that Ash had it, apparently there was some rumor that I also had it. I was like, no, I don't have. Well, I'm not sure how it started, but I got a text from like someone back home being like, "Oh, is it true you've got COVID?" And I'm like, "No." Apparently, that had spread to maybe a couple of girls in Adelaide. I'm like, I'm not sure how. But yeah, no, that was kind of a bit of a funny laugh for a day. I had a laugh with some of the girls that apparently I'd had COVID, according to some of my contacts in South Australia. So no, that was a funny rumor, which I had to laugh about with some of the girls.
Yeah. You're like, well, you're checking your tests, like, don't think so. Don't think that's quite
negative. But
yeah.
Maybe they'd heard that there was a second case and they just, for some reason, their mind went to me.
Oh, well, it's very, very lucky that it wasn't. Otherwise, it would have been a bit of a nightmare. But you captained the Australian A team against the England A in the Women's Ashes, and it was a complete whitewash. You won every single game except for one draw. So what was that experience like, being a part of the A team and versing quite a young England A side? It was, I believe.
Yeah, like I think it's great that England came over and brought an A team to begin with. I think that's something that we've done over there in the past, going to England for the Ashes 2019, I think it was. I remember going with the Oz A team over there. So it's nice to kind of have the reverse series here. And yeah, like I really enjoyed it. It was great, like, experience for me, captaining that team. That's something I hadn't done before. I'd been kind of a part of Australia A for quite a few years. So, you know, it's quite a familiar environment, which is nice. And you get a lot of the same girls there, which is really cool. So yeah, it's a series that everyone kind of enjoys, and we had a bit of flexibility. We had a lot of the girls who are in the Ashes squad come down and play. We had like Pez and Belzy and Hannah Darlington as well, all kind of came in and played some of the T20 games, which is really nice. The 50 over games, we managed to kind of keep our squad together, which was nice too, because I feel like we almost had an excess of players and some of the girls maybe weren't getting as much of a go. It's sometimes hard captaining those games and you're like, oh, got like 8 bowlers in the team. How do I give them all overs? But you know, minor troubles there. But yeah, it was a good series. I think the England A team, like, I think it was a pretty solid team that they named, to be honest. Like, having played against a lot of them in 100, I felt like it was pretty much a genuine A team, apart from, you know, obviously the ones who were in the Ashes squad. But like, I remember like Alice Davidson Richards, for instance, she was probably one of their star players in the ODI series that we played against them. She hit a couple of really good scores against us, put us under pressure. So it was really nice to see her make a test debut a couple of weeks ago and score 100. So, like, you know, and, you know, she's not necessarily too young either. She's probably around my age. So, yeah, in saying that, they had a good mix of young and old players. Like Alice Capsey was playing, she did pretty well, and Emma Lamb now playing for England too. So I think it's really good for the pathways for both England and Australia, that, you know, you can see players who, you know, do pretty well at the A level and then kind of obviously get their chance in and been doing really well on the English side of things, which is really nice to see too. So yeah, hopefully they have a few more of those A tours, because yeah, we really enjoy playing them. And yeah, we enjoyed winning 5-0 too with the one washout. But we went into that, you know, that week we kind of got together as an A team with our coach Jude and saying, you know, we want to win 8-0 because we had 2 practice games against Australia. So unfortunately we lost one of the practice games against Australia, but we did beat them in the second game. So we try to claim that. I think Australia like to forget that. But yeah, just putting that out there on the podcast.
I mean, well, you mentioned before about obviously playing in the 100 and most of the girls, so you would probably have quite an insight that not a lot of the others would. So did you, I guess, when, for example, Alice Capsey coming out to bat, did you have the kind of tactics as to, you know how she bats, you know how to get her out?
Like, I wouldn't say I have like really great strategies as to how to get them all out, because I remember a few of them did pretty well in the 100. Maybe didn't get out too much, but Yeah, I remember playing against Steve Jones. We couldn't get her out in 100, but obviously we had a bit of footage from her in WBBL. So yeah, there's a little bit of some of the analysis that we got. I'm like looking at the footage. I'm like, this is like 4 years old or something from like an old KSL back in the day, because we don't get, I think in our system, we don't get access to the 100 games. So yeah, it's kind of just trying to like refresh my memory as to kind of what I saw. And we were lucky we had a few girls who'd been over in the 100. Like Heather Graham had played over there. She was in A team as well. So yeah, we had a few minds to kind of put to work, and we kind of came up with plans, but a lot of it's just adapting on the day. Remember we were playing in Adelaide and it was quite windy and there's a short boundary, so obviously your plans kind of have to adapt to that anyway. So a lot of it was just, you know, see how we go and adapt on the run, which is probably the really good thing about going into games where you maybe don't know as much about the opposition. It does free you up to just play a bit more naturally anyway.
Yeah, it was very disappointing that Adelaide once again couldn't produce the weather for that for that time, because it was the washout was in Adelaide, and I was like, I went down, it was absolutely chucking down rain, and I was like, I can't believe
Well, it's funny because the weather was actually okay. Like we got 2.5 games in, whereas I think the girls who were playing in the real Ashes, they had a couple of washouts and maybe 5 overs in. So yeah, I think we probably had it better than the real games, so we probably snuck in our games at the right scheduling times. But yeah, I think we missed out on the second innings and maybe our third T20, which is a shame because I think England, they put a pretty good total on the board that game, so it would have been a really good chase. But yeah, we can just assume we would have won, hopefully.
Just take it as the win.
I'll just take it. We'll take it.
Yeah.
I was just going to mention the 100 because you obviously talked about that, how you went over last year with the Welsh Fire. Do you have any highlights from that experience, obviously being part of the first season of the Women's 100?
Yeah, well, being a part of it was really cool. Like I've always been maybe just a little bit sad that I never played at the first season of the WBBL. You kind of feel like you miss out on being, you know, in that first team. So that was a really cool experience. You know, there's only ever going to be 11 people who played in, you know, in the first game for the Welsh Fire. So that was really nice, and something that, like, as a squad we talked about kind of going into the season. And I think the way that it was advertised and they ran it so well for the women's game, having it, you know, pretty much a joint fixture with the men's, which is a lot better than a lot of the double headers that they used to do in the WBBL in the past. I think sometimes back home would be like have a 2-hour break between games, and so like no one would come and watch the WBBL, or well, like a few would, but compared to when they were trying to back it onto a BBL game, whereas at the 100 it was maybe like half an hour between the matches, so you go in, it's like a 5-hour block, you get 2 games, and like there's so many families and a lot of people who first time cricket watchers which were there. But I just remember, especially in the second innings of the games, you'd be out in the field and you'd be getting heckled on the boundary, and you know, it's just the amazing atmosphere. Like I can really remember the Oval and Edgbaston, especially just how kind of you look around at the stands, like in the double tier, and because there's people everywhere around, it feels full, even though it might not be absolutely packed, but there's enough people everywhere that you really get a sense of that crowd atmosphere and engagement in the game, which kind of, you know, gets the nerves going a little bit. But yeah, I think that was amazing. Like I reckon the 8 games that I played in the 100 are probably the 8 biggest crowds I've played in front of for sure. So yeah, I think the way that they advertised it, ran it, pretty much made it, you know, it's the men's 100, women's 100, it's the same teams playing the same teams. So it's really quite a really cool event, and, you know, you get involved in a lot of both competitions, really. You can follow it really well.
And obviously with that sort of correlated fixture, do you reckon that's something that other competitions moving forward, obviously we see all these new competitions being created, do you reckon more competitions need to have that sort of side-by-side unified nature? Is that something they can take from the 100 based off your experiences?
Look, it probably depends on the competition, to be honest. Like I'm not sure it would work well for the big bash at the moment. Like I feel like we found a really good window, and you know, our kind of, it's probably not as good for crowd participation because it's not on the holidays, but in terms of TV ratings, I think they've been really improving year on year, and we get to play a lot more in prime time now, which is really cool. But yeah, I think especially for like new competitions and maybe shorter competitions as well, like the 100 was 8 games, whereas say Big Bash is 14, it's probably a bit logistically harder to do that. So and the men's big bash gets a lot of stick for being too long. So kind of mixing it with the women's might be a little bit hard now. But I think so something like, I don't know, I don't follow the IPL too much, but if they're trying to initiate something there, it could be an idea for them. Or I think the double header thing does work well, especially for setting up a new competition. I think it's really worthwhile. I'm not exactly sure how the CPL are running their competition this year, but whether they're doing double headers or not, or whether it's a separate thing. But I think the format that the 100 did, it worked really well. Just the advertising, the marketing, they really made the men's and the women's seem like equal competitions, which as a player in the comp, you felt really valued, and on equal standpoint pretty much with the men's team. So I thought they did that really well.
I guess, was it good having a familiar face in Piper Cleary over in the Welsh Fire? Because going into a brand new tournament as an Australian, you probably weren't know what you were expecting, so to have Piper there must have been a bit of relief. Yeah,
it was. I remember it was kind of really strange because obviously there was a lot of girls signed and then didn't end up going because kind of COVID and a lot of things happened. Some people get signed and then they get COVID at last minute, can't go over, and then there's last minute signings come in. But I remember getting a message from Piper a little bit just before, maybe a couple of weeks before I went over, saying like, "Oh, are you playing for the Welsh Fire?" And I'm like, "Oh yeah, I am. This is really cool. Are you playing it?" Because I knew she was over there playing county cricket, I think for Lancashire at the time. But it was obviously really cool. Like, I've known Piper for quite a few years now, having done a few like Aussie and games with her and having played with her for a season at the Scorchers as well. So it was certainly very nice knowing that I'd have a familiar face. And then Hayley Matthews ended up joining as well, and she's someone who I'd played with for a few years at Hobart too. So it was nice to have the kind of two internationals be two people who I knew pretty well and had played a couple of seasons with. So that was really nice and comforting from that point of view. But I'd been over and played in England before, so I kind of knew vaguely what to expect, which was I played a season of kind of county cricket back in my gap year way back when, so when I was 18. So I had been over there and played cricket before a few times actually. So it was really nice. It's nice to know someone going into a team like that. But all the girls were great. We obviously had to spend a lot of time at the hotel together because we were under pretty strict COVID regulations, which is probably one of the more one of the drawbacks of my time over there. The fact that I'm someone, when I do travel for cricket, I do like to explore a lot. So having been pretty much confined to Cardiff Bay because I couldn't really use a car or anything, basically just get the bus to training and stuff. So it's a little bit hard only being able to eat at a select few venues outside. Otherwise it was a lot of room service at the hotel and Deliveroo and Uber Eats and that type of thing. But no, it's really nice. Obviously we're all at the hotel and we'd kind of have everyone get their Uber Eats together in the team room. So we kind of had a little bit of socializing going on, which was really nice. So it was a tough tournament for us on the whole. I think, we'd probably had maybe one of the teams that maybe struggled a little bit more. I think initially they'd planned around having some superstars of Meg Lanning and Beth Mooney, and I think JJ initially was playing there too. So I think obviously, well, hopefully we weren't too bad, but obviously it's a little bit of a difference in quality. But we had a really good time, and being able to travel around the UK and playing some of the grounds that you only ever dream of or watch on TV growing up. I thought that was probably the highlight for me. Just the experience of match day I thought was amazing, and the atmosphere and just I guess the history of the stadiums. A bit disappointed I never got to go to Lord's, but it's good incentive to go back again, I suppose.
A bit disappointing that you weren't able to really you're going to play for Wales and you can't really see much of Wales, so disappointing. But
I did manage to convince our team manager to take me on because she could only take one person. I'm like, oh, could I just have a day where I get outside? We did a little bit of a walk along the coastline, which was really nice. So we had a good time, except I think it rained for most of it. But it was just nice to escape Cardiff Bay for a little bit and the hotel, because it does. I think I'd would have been coming back to 2 weeks of hard quarantine. I'm like, I just need a day where I can just go outside and stretch my legs a bit. So yeah, it was very grateful. Yeah, all the people kind of at Welsh Fire were really nice and supportive, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, no, that's good. And that's good that the local girls were okay with you going. You're like, yeah, I'll go. And they're like, yeah, that's okay. You're the one who you haven't seen much of girls.
Well, they could all take their cars. That's the thing.
Okay.
Whereas those of us who were the internationals, we didn't really have any cars. I think Piper actually had access to a car because she'd obviously been living in the UK. So they could kind of come and go as they please a little bit and go home for a few days and then come back. Whereas I think some, like for myself, I was probably kind of picked up in the hotel room a little bit, which Hayley would have been as well, but you know, she's pretty content playing like a PlayStation and Xbox and stuff. So I kind of was pretty lucky that I managed to convince the team manager to take me outside before my 2 weeks of hard quarantine going home. So I was very grateful.
Yeah, that's good. Now, I guess going right back to the very beginning, could you talk to us a little bit about how you very first started playing cricket?
Yeah. Well, I always watched it on TV. Like I loved any sport really. I played a lot of tennis growing up as well. So I felt like I probably always was into the kind of hand-eye ball type sports, hitting balls or whatever. And I played a lot in the backyard with my brother, my older brother, James. So yeah, I kind of tried to replicate, you know, the Ashes in the backyard, that type of thing when the test match is on. And then I think when I got, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9, there was the issue of Saturday afternoon sport, and I could go to cricket with my brother or gymnastics with my sister, and I hated gymnastics with a passion. So turned out I went to cricket and really enjoyed it. And I think, you know, it was a bit hard, kind of, obviously it was mostly boys playing, kind of in a country town in New South Wales. So yeah, my parents kind of obviously saw that I enjoyed it, and so really encouraged me to stick with it, even if sometimes maybe I was a little bit nervous about it. But yeah, it's really good. Kind of once I got to under 12s, 14s, 16s, I'd gathered a group of my friends who, you know, I played soccer with and stuff. So we had a few girls who were playing in the boys comp. So we had about 4 in our team, kind of all through the underage years, which was really cool. And you know, playing with the boys was great, and they kind of got used to having girls on the team, which it was probably good for them too. So it was always funny when you come up against the opposition, like, oh, they've got girls in their team, and then we like bowled them out, and then they're like, oh, I got bowled out by a girl, and you know, all this stuff. You kind of ruined a few under 12 egos. So but it was good fun. Like I really enjoyed it. I think it was great, I guess, from a skill perspective wise, playing against the boys kind of all through those underage years, and then kind of went through a bit of the pathway system at New South Wales, obviously while still being in the country, and kind of school cricket and that type of thing. Ended up moving to Sydney for university, and scored some runs in the Premier Cricket competition there, and yeah, got picked up as like a development player in the Breakers squad not long after. So yeah, kind of been in the, I guess, state system since then, and then got my chance in Tassie, and then started playing Big Bash, and then obviously moved up here to Brisbane. So yeah, it's kind of, long story short there, that's kind of where I've ended up now.
Yeah, I mean, wicket keeping it's quite a tricky thing to play professionally, I'd say, because you've only got one per team, like one wicket keeper per team. So were you always a wicket keeper growing up?
No, like when I was younger, I did everything. Like I'd bat, bowl, field, keep. Like you can't, you know, in the underage, everyone gets 2 overs, rotate the keeper around, you know. So yeah, like I used to do a bit of medium pace bowling back in the day. I probably peaked in under 12s though, I'd say. Got a double hat trick in under 12s, and then probably decided I was never going to make it as a fast bowler because I was far too slow, and probably became from a part-time wicket keeper into probably more of a full-time wicket keeper when I was like 14 or 15. Throughout kind of those pathway systems, I was definitely a keeper, and had given up the bowling by then. Kind of just early days of bowling, probably just in club cricket where everyone gets a go. So I still consider myself a decent net bowler, but I think our Queensland coach gets mad at me every time I try to have a bowl because I'd probably throw my back out or something. But yeah, like it's obviously, it's, as you say, it's can be a bit frustrating at times because, you know, you can have the best 6 batters in a team, but, you know, only the best wicket keeper makes the team usually. So, yeah, you could be the third best batter in the country and make the team, but if you're, you know, third best wicket keeper, it's a tough life for you. So, yeah, like in that way, it's a bit annoying, but, you know, it's something, you know, you can't really just be a pure wicket keeper anyway. So I've always wanted to work hard on my batting and try to make teams in my batting in my own right anyway. So, yeah, in saying that, it's something that I love doing, like keeping. It's probably one of my most enjoyable parts of the game because, you know, you're in the ball, you're in the game every ball, and something's always going on. It's probably like I just like to just be right in the thick of it, in the action, and try to bring that energy and excitement to the rest of the team. So it's definitely probably one of my favorite things about cricket is wicket keeping, and I'm very much a wicket keeping nerd too. I think I probably annoy our coach here who does the wicket keeping because I just always want to talk to him about it. So yeah, it's definitely a passion of mine, and yeah, it's not something I want to give up anytime soon because I just enjoy it so much. But yeah, it does certainly, you know, it's not always an easy road, but it's certainly very fun. So you do much less running than everyone else on the team, and you get to be involved every ball. So I don't know what could be better than that.
Exactly.
Just on from the start, obviously the progression from club cricket was then obviously moving to state cricket. Obviously with New South Wales, it was for you with the Breakers. You made your state debut in the WNCL final, which would have been crazy, I would imagine. What was that like making your debut at state level in such a big game?
Well, it's funny because I think I'm always written down as making my debut in that game, but that was back in the days of WNCL where you could name 12 in the team. So I remember my debut, it was the final. I think I'd been brought into the squad, I think the night before the final, because I think Midge had maybe fractured a finger or something in the semi-final, and they just wanted to have a keeper there as cover. So I was kind of brought in, but I didn't bat, didn't bowl, obviously, didn't field. So I never actually went on the ground that whole game. I was kind of just the 12th, but yeah, it was back in the days when you could name 12 in the team, because obviously she kind of didn't really end up having any issues on the field, which, you know, was pretty lucky. But I was very nervous on the sideline, thinking I might have to run on at any time. But yeah, I think I made what I call my proper debut the next year when I kind of was picked as a middle order bat in a couple of games for the Breakers that year, before moving to Tassie the year after. So yeah, it's always funny when people say, "Oh, you debuted in the final." I'm like, but I got a cap, but I never actually went on the field. I ran drinks maybe a few times, so I'm not really sure I deserve the accolades there of winning a title.
Technically, that still counts.
I was on the team sheet, so I'll claim it. But yeah, in terms of contribution, I can't really claim to have done too much for that win.
I mean, yeah. It could have been. It's the written evidence that you have there. You still have the written evidence will be there somewhere. So
that's right. It's a cap under, like, I think it's one of my 3 caps for New South Wales. So yeah, I'll count it.
Yeah. Now officially, we should call you Dr. Georgia Redmayne. So, what made you want to kind of first get into medicine, and how do you juggle that with playing professional cricket?
Yeah, look, as I said, like, I don't think it was ever something I thought I would have to juggle with playing professional cricket, to be honest. I never thought I would be playing professional cricket. It was always just something I enjoyed doing on the weekends, and, you know, I knew I was okay at it, but like, I never thought it'd be a career pathway. So I kind of went through all of high school, you know, working hard, knowing that I want to go to uni and study. But yeah, I probably didn't really know exactly what I wanted to do. I would say maybe like year 10, year 11, I probably decided on trying to get into med. I knew I always wanted to do something in health because obviously, you know, I really like, you know, you want to be able to help make a difference on people's lives and help them in times of need and that type of thing. So, and I always enjoyed kind of science and learning. I was, you know, a bit of a nerd in school, loved learning new things. So medicine did seem like a bit of a challenge as well. So I got a bit competitive trying to get into it. So that was really cool. Like, obviously I worked really hard and had to do a lot of interviews and that type of thing. Kind of did a bit of a tour around the country to a lot of unis interviewing to try to get a spot. But then ended up in Sydney, which was really cool. I think my brother and sister were there also studying, or working at that time. So it was kind of a familiar environment, and I'd played a few games for the university's club and was a bit familiar with them as well. Alex Blackwell was playing there at the time, so it had a little bit to do with her in the past, which was really nice. And, you know, they were really welcoming and kind of got a few sports scholarships along the way, which definitely helped. So for me at that point, cricket was just kind of a way to maybe, you know, earn a little bit of cash on the side or get scholarships or, you know, I was really fortunate. Like, I was able to have a gap year and play in England. So I'm like, how good is this? That cricket just opens so many doors for you. Even if you're not playing at the top level, like it's fantastic, you know, kind of sport to be involved in. And yeah, kind of did uni. I was just a full-time uni student, to be honest, and I played club cricket on the weekends. And then, like, at that point, cricket, like with the Breakers, I was in like a Breakers development squad. It was like nowhere near professional. We got maybe $2,000 a year, so it was just like a training that I went to on Tuesday and Thursday nights. And to be honest, I wasn't really committed to the, you know, elite athlete lifestyle at that point, I'd say, in my first few years at uni. But yeah, obviously kind of by the time I got to my fourth year, we were doing a research project, which I ended up finishing quite early on in the year. So I had a whole lot of free time that year. And to be honest, I was probably at the point of cricket where I was probably considering giving it up. Like, I was at my last few years of uni, and then I'd be working full time, and I probably wasn't really, you know, getting maybe the opportunities that I was liking at New South Wales, obviously, because they had a really good squad at that point too. So when I got a call from Julia Price, who was a coach at Tassie, she probably kept me going in my career when I could have retired at maybe age 21, age 22. So yeah, really lucky to get that opportunity, and that it came when it did. Had all that free time during that research year, so was able to move to Hobart and train and play that season, which was great. Got a taste of, you know, the Big Bash and WNCL, and turns out I really enjoyed it. So I was like, well, I'll move heaven and earth to make sure I can keep playing in this and keep studying. So yeah, it was certainly a difficult my last 2 years at uni, when it was back to, I guess, full-time study and not half a year off with a research project. So yeah, that was probably two of the toughest years in terms of balancing. Yeah, like, I think, like, initially, like, when Pricey called me, and, you know, she was like, whatever, we'll get you through your uni, we'll support you. So that was fantastic. Yeah, playing a few seasons down there, but yeah, I guess once I finally graduated and had to find an internship job, moved up to Tweed for that. So that's quite near the Queensland border. So kind of naturally it turned to probably be a lot more suitable playing for Queensland. I think it was just getting to the point where cricket had become so much more professional, and you know, it was hard for Tasmania to keep contracting me or demanding stuff of me when I wasn't really there. So, and when I couldn't be down there either. So yeah, it worked a lot better moving to Queensland then. And yeah, it's been one of the best decisions I think I've made for my cricket, because I think I've benefited so much from being up here in this system. And yeah, it allowed me to do a bit of a mixture of part-time work and time off and full-time at different parts of the year, depending on, I guess, what the cricket season was. But yeah, it has been very tough balancing both, but I think I've probably done the hardest years of it now that I've kind of done my internship and I'm not actually employed full-time at any hospital anymore. I'm kind of doing more casual jobs now, which is really nice. I think it's the first time I've been in control of when and where I work. So it's really nice to be able to commit a lot more time to cricket, and especially kind of being in more of a leadership position here at Queensland, just being able to be around the squad a bit more has been really nice. And, you know, we've got a really young squad. So yeah, I feel pretty privileged to be kind of in a senior role and trying to kind of guide them along as well. So it's nice to have a bit of a break from Edison for a little while. But in saying that, I do kind of go back in the off season, as I said earlier, and try to get a few weeks in here and there when I can.
Well, I'm super glad you didn't give up cricket, because look where you've been playing all over the world now. So I'm sure you feel the same. But
yeah, look, honestly, I feel very guilty sometimes. I think of all my friends, like I had some really good friends all through uni, and that kind of burning out for working full time as a junior doctor. It's a very hard lifestyle, and meanwhile I'm probably touring around England, New Zealand, Dubai. I try not to it is hard sometimes. I do feel a bit guilty. I'm like, oh, I've really taken the easy route here rather than working night shifts at the hospital. I do have a pretty good lifestyle, so I think it is a nice little it does give me really good perspective whenever I do go back to working in a hospital. Coming to cricket is just such a joy, honestly. I like, who cares if I get a duck? Who cares if I drop a catch? There's so much worse things to be worrying about in life, and I could have a much more stressful job than catching balls and hitting balls. So yeah, again, it makes me feel very, very grateful for what I do.
Yeah, and I mean, in the big COVID wave here in Australia, did you have much to do within the hospitals or anything, or were you still quite out of it?
Initially in 2020, like I was working full time at Tweed Hospital then. But like that was kind of like a weird pseudo COVID time. Like there was a lot of talk about COVID and a lot of lockdowns, but there was not actually much COVID where we were. So, they cancelled all like the elective surgeries. So, and everyone was locked down. They weren't coming into hospital. So it was probably the easiest work I've ever done in my life, because there were so many less patients in the hospital at that time because everyone was bracing for so many to come in, which never happened. So in saying that, there was a lot of kind of disaster planning going on in terms of working how they move patients between wards if they're infected. And we did burn through a whole lot of PPE during that time, because anyone who had a fever or any kind of vague COVID symptom initially went to like isolation room, would all have to put all the gowns, the gloves, the mask, goggles, you name it, everything. So we did go through those quite quick every time you had to go into a patient room. But yeah, I think obviously as time's progressed, it's certainly changed. And I think like initially at Tweed, and even the year after when I was working, it still was probably before the big COVID wave actually hit us here in Australia. So before it became really widespread. It was probably only this recent stint that I had at work where I was actually dealing with COVID positive patients. And I remember I think there was one afternoon where I was working, we're like, oh, we've got this patient with unknown fevers, we're not sure what it is. And turns out it was COVID. And yeah, unfortunately, I think someone who was in that room had gone home over the weekend, tested positive, and then they had to test all the people in the room. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, I just went and took blood from that lady. And I spent a fair bit of time with her, but I think I'd recently had COVID anyway, so I obviously didn't catch it. But it certainly changes the way you do things. And it's like you see that there's a few people kind of around in that ward who obviously ended up testing positive because they're all in a shared room. So I think it's nice that we've, obviously people are more equipped at dealing with it now, and a bit more protected having vaccines. So I think it's just something that's kind of normal part of the hospital now. Obviously there's a lot of people who have to move around when there's a positive case, but it's probably less of a absolute disaster and more just something that we manage as is at the moment.
Yeah.
Back to cricket. Obviously now you've had a wonderful career to this point, but I'm sure in your mind at least there's something that you want to achieve, something that's going to keep motivating you to keep going. Is there something that you haven't done yet in cricket that you still want to do before you hang the boots up, if you will?
Yeah, I would love to play for my country. That would definitely be a number one. Even just one game, I'd love to be able to say that, I'm an Australian cricketer. So that's something that's definitely a motivation. I really want to be able to break into that team and get a cap. I don't really care what format, I don't care what role, but that's certainly a motivation to try to keep improving year to year and try to, still show that you're there and thereabouts to selectors. So that's definitely one. The other one would be a WBBL title, something that I've never achieved. I think I've played in maybe 4 finals now and lost all of them. So, semi-finals, I suppose, lost all of them. So I'd love to try to start winning a few WBBL finals and win the trophy would be a huge highlight. I think up till now, my highlight's probably been the WNCL win that we had for Queensland a few years back. And, you know, that was the first ever win for Queensland and something that I'll always remember. Just a really special day. And it's nice to be able to share that joy with your team, especially making history. But I know Brisbane Heat have won a few times, so I'd love to try to win another one with them, hopefully this year. But we'll see how things turn out. But they're probably the main two that I'd love to achieve. I think with all these new tournaments coming on board, that's another thing. Like, I'm someone who just loves traveling and seeing new places. So, you know, I never would have thought I'd have been able to have played cricket in, you know, India, Sri Lanka, Dubai, you know, New Zealand, you name it, England. So I feel pretty lucky that I've been able to travel to all these places. And, you know, I'd love any opportunity that came up in any other leagues. You know, you see them kind of popping up all over the place now. So certainly hopefully there'll be opportunities there as well. Would be another, I guess, goal as well, to try to get involved in as many tournaments as I can. I suppose I think, you know, things like Fair Break were awesome, being involved in that, and being in the first 100. They're also pretty high up there. So yeah, been pretty lucky to have done what I've done. But yeah, I'd say kind of the two biggest motivators for me right now, kind of in the middle of a pre-season, doing a lot of hard work, is trying to get that WBBL title, and trying to get that selection into the Aussie team one day would be amazing.
Yeah, it'd be great to see you there. 100%. I'd love to see you play on the big stage.
I was going to say, if there are any goals in cricket, what would you say? Have you got any plans following cricket, being the future, or anything outside of cricket that's post, obviously, the hopeful Australia cap that you pick up in the next couple of years? What's going to come after that?
Well, we'll see what happens in the next few years. But yeah, it's hard. Like, obviously, I'm pretty lucky. Like, you know, even though it's kind of strange the way that the professionalism had developed, I think I'm really lucky the fact that I've been able to get a degree whilst playing cricket. I'm not sure I'd be able to do the same thing if I was coming out of year 12 now. I think it would be so much harder to go through uni with the way that the game's just professionalized lately. So I feel really lucky that I probably came through at the right time to be able to balance both a bit easier. So I haven't exactly made too many plans, like, especially like, I guess, in the medical field, like in terms of specialty or anything. I'm not really too sure what I want to go into yet, but yeah, I'm pretty grateful that, I guess I do have a degree and some experience, which, you know, can be hard for a lot of athletes, I suppose, after retiring, if you haven't really had too much experience in workplaces and that type of thing, and getting that transition out of cricket. So yeah, I feel like I'm pretty well equipped, I suppose, and pretty lucky that I've had that experience, as well as being able to have such a rewarding career on the field too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned about the professionalism of women's cricket. It really has hit a new wave, especially with the 2020 T20 final at the MCG with 80,000 there. It's, you know, that's one of a number of things that has just shown how well it's improved, and how, you know, how much people are starting to care about it now, which is absolutely brilliant. Being a part of that, how special is it to say, you know, I'm part of this new era of women's cricket. I'm part of, you know, the next sort of moment, if you like. How is that just to say, right, I helped spark this in a sense?
Yeah, it's really cool. Like, it's something you sometimes sit back and look back on, and you're like, I'm kind of in kind of that revolution mode, isn't it? Like, and it's not just cricket as well. Like, it's, you know, soccer, like, look at the football codes, the AFLW's around the same time as WBBL, like, that's kind of just grown as well. And, you know, the super netball, like, I think all the codes are just kind of going higher and higher, and kind of pushing the bar to try to get each one more and more professional. And you see one goes up, and then another code will jump up and be like, oh, we're offering our female athletes this. And you know, I think it's a fantastic time to be involved in women's sport in general. I think there's competition between the codes, there's competition between countries in cricket, obviously. Like, you know, England and Australia are probably the most resourced at the moment, but hopefully there's going to be a lot of pressure for India to kind of go the same way, and hopefully more countries. Even just last week, New Zealand announcing that they were going to have the equal match payments for the men and women is a huge step in the right direction there as well. So yeah, it's kind of fantastic. I think just women's sport in general, like the last 10 years even, you kind of look at how much it's grown and developed, and yeah, just lucky to be a part of it. You know, superstars like Ash Barty and Sam Kerr, and in all these different sports, it's a pretty cool time to be a female growing up in Australia who likes sport, I think.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah, definitely. I was going to mention the New Zealand the pay thing there, so it's good that you mentioned that. But it's really good to see that they've taken that initiative. So hopefully that's something that can spread worldwide as well. But now finally, so just to finish off our interviews, we like to do some quick fire, some random, some cricket related, this or that questions. So pretty simple. There's some straightforward ones. So first one is T20 or Test cricket.
Test cricket. Oh, what I'd give to play in a test. Absolutely. I love to watch, like, I stayed up and watched like the England South Africa games. I'm just such a Test cricket nuffy. Like, it's just so cool seeing everyone in the whites and just everyone around the bat. That's the best thing about wicket keeping. Like, when you have play these multi-day games and you get everyone in, you have more friends around the bat you can chat to. It's great. I think Test cricket, absolutely.
Yeah, well, hopefully they can bring more women's Test matches in, because it's the best form.
I love
watch.
that. There's more teams playing now. Like South Africa played, India playing a few now. So I really hope more countries get to play tests, like New Zealand. Susie Bates has never played a test match. I think that's ridiculous. I'd love to see more test matches. I think it's great.
Yeah, I know. When I saw that statistic about New Zealand, I was like, wow, that's really
and then they came out with their match payments for a test match with a little asterisk saying that they haven't played in like 20 years or something.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. I didn't think that was serious, but there you go. Hopefully that's something for the future. Morning or night?
Night.
Okay.
Are we talking about like just in general?
Just in general, just in general. Morning or night?
Night.
Person. Yep. Dogs or cats?
Dogs.
Okay. Do you have any animals yourself?
I don't have a dog, but I've always wanted one.
Okay. Beach or backyard cricket?
Both are good. Probably going to have to go with backyard, just because it's something that you grow up with. When I'm at the beach, I probably just prefer to go swimming, to be honest, than play cricket. But I'll usually take a ball to try to catch in the waves, I'm sure. But so there'll be a bit of a cricket element in there somewhere. But I'd probably go backyard cricket. Yeah,
good choice. TV or film?
Film.
Okay, good. Do you have a favorite movie by any chance? Putting you on the spot.
Oh, I've got heaps. I'm sorry, I can't nail it down. But like, I do like TV as well. But like, there's something about like going to the cinema again. Like, it's really nice.
Yeah,
I went to the cinema and saw Top Gun the other day. That was really good. Yeah. And it's like, it's so nice to be in a cinema again after like 2 years of not going to a cinema. So I think I just enjoyed just the experience more of the film. Exactly. So I do like a good binge on TV as well, but I'll go film.
Yeah, no, both are equally good, I think. Orange juice or apple juice?
Orange juice.
Good choice. Agree with that one. Now, would you rather hit 3 sixes to win a game or take a hat trick to win a game? You honestly, this is just whatever you prefer.
Novelty, I'd probably say a hat trick. Just the fact that I'm bowling in the last over is a bit of a novelty in itself. But probably more realistic. Though 3 sixes in a row, I'm not sure how realistic that is. But probably that would be a pretty cool way to win a game with 3 sixes in a row.
Yeah, no, I think
though being in the field, I reckon, like, it's a hard one. Being in the field for the hat trick and just the atmosphere of everyone in the team, like, that would be really cool to be a part of. Like, even if I wasn't even bowling, but like, I feel like what a way to finish a game with someone getting a hat trick.
I know, yeah.
If you're bowling at the tail enders at that point, it might not mean as much. So maybe 3 sixes.
I was going to say off the back of that, 3 catches or 3 sixes to win a game. So that's a more wicket keeper tailored question.
It's true.
3 stumpings could get me.
Cool.
In a row as well.
Yeah, in a row.
A hat trick of catches.
I'd probably go with that, just because you're on the field and there's more people, like your teammates are more around you. Yeah. Be a great atmosphere, getting 3 wickets in a row, especially if I was involved, would be great.
Yeah, no, I could definitely back that choice. Now, pineapple on a pizza, yes or no?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
You're like the second person to ever say no to that. What's
Really?
your
Okay.
Yeah, it's a very popular yes answer. What's your go-to pizza choice?
Oh, look, I like kind of like I probably don't really have a regular one that I would go for. Like, like your hen or pineapple. Obviously, I don't like. I'd take the pineapple off. Or like a supreme or anything like that. I don't know. I like just kind of like the homemade ones. I'd love to have some chicken on there. I'd love some like pumpkin or like sweet potato or spinach and sun-dried tomato, like something a bit more gourmet, to be honest.
Yeah,
But
whatever you're feeling
I
on the
love kind
day.
of making my own, to be honest.
Yeah.
With
Yeah, no, that's
nice
completely
little bit of
fair.
veggies and some nice seasoning and stuff. So
Yeah.
I'd probably go with that.
Sounds good, just without the pineapple. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, finally, do you keep your chocolate in the fridge or in the pantry?
I keep it in the fridge.
Good. Yeah, so do I. I
like the crunch of it, like when you break it and it snaps. And satisfying, and then you get to munch on it a bit more. Whereas if in the pantry, it will melt. Especially living in like Brisbane, it's it's hot up here, so I'd hate to have it soggy and gross.
Yeah. No, I can definitely agree with that. It's that again, a very unpopular one, but I can agree with that one. But yeah, no, that's it. That's all the questions we got. I think you passed. You did pretty well, except for the pineapple. Can't really agree there. But yeah, no, it's been really, really brilliant to talk to you tonight. Thank you very much for your time.
No worries. Thanks, guys.
Oh my, runs in the first innings to Redmayne, 71 of them. But that is probably the highlight of her night. Incredible work there from Georgia Redmayne.
So that was us with Georgia Redmayne, the wonderful Dr. Georgia Redmayne. We thank you so much for your time, Georgia, if you are listening in. We hope so, but under no obligation, of course. But thank you for your time if you are listening in. An absolute pleasure, and hopefully we do see you at WBBL games around the country this upcoming summer. And if you recognise us, hopefully, we'll have to see. But that'll certainly be an interesting talking point. But now, obviously, we've got to have a bit of a discussion about it, of course. And she did bring up some very interesting points.
Yeah, it was, I think, for me, it was the real talk about her having to juggle being a doctor and playing cricket at the same time. I think it was really interesting to hear, and the fact that she almost gave up cricket. Like I said in it, I was like, well, I'm glad you didn't, because she's such a great player. So I think that was really interesting to hear about how she was so close to giving it up, but how she's balanced it, and through COVID as well. I think she's got a pretty good routine with the two.
Yeah, and it was it was admirable to hear how she balanced the two, and she's balanced the two ever so well. Sometimes when you do two things at once, certainly when I do two things at once, one thing falters, even if the other things are going so well. But yeah, with her professions, both things, all, going so well. So it's brilliant to hear.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, other than that, it was really good to hear her kind of talk about the fair break, and also about the 100 as well. I think was really interesting, because it was kind of a situation where it was supposed to be mainly the Australian team who went over, but because they all couldn't due to COVID, I really liked that it was her and Laura Harris and Piper Cleary, and all those kind of players that aren't in the Australian team. I think was really, really good to see go over for the 100, and I'm super glad Georgia had the experience to go and play in Welsh Fire. And yeah, I'm glad she enjoyed her time over there. It was really good to watch her.
Absolutely. It'd be interesting to see if she makes any more of a forays overseas to play cricket. I'm sure she will. She's definitely a talented player enough too, but it'd be interesting to see where the next opportunity for her is, and we'll be watching her career with great interest, as we have been over the years. Yeah, definitely. But yeah, that was the interview with Georgia Redmayne. Hope you enjoyed listening. Now, as usual, next week we will be back with another guest. But in the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram or Twitter at howsthattcp, or you can send us an email at howsthatthecricketpodcast@gmail.com. But that is all from me this week. Thank you for having me on again, Lily, as always, and I hope everyone listening enjoys the rest of their weekend or the rest of their week, whatever they get up to. How's that? You missed about